probably seen how AMD did absolutely phenomenal this week. Huge pop on Friday. So this is big news. So today, this week, we're going to actually be analyzing the stock and kind of see if it's a good buy or not at this price. So we'll take a quick look at the management and how it fits in the actual tech sector right now. A quick look at the charts with our chart master Max, and then if it's overvalued and how each of us is playing it, because we're the 3D investors, we have kind of three-dimensional analysis of the stocks. We all see things differently. So I'm Patrick. I'm here with my co-hosts Max and Everson. So if you'd like to level up your investing, just like and subscribe. It actually helps the channel, and you're going to get a lot of value out of it. So why don't we start quickly with the management? Everson and I have been following this stock for a long time. We both like the CEO, Lisa Su. So Everson, do you want to just give us a quick rundown? Like, do you actually trust her to lead the company?
Yeah, no, I think she's been doing a fabulous job. I mean, as we talked about it in previous episodes, that Lisa, from the time that she started the company, this is trading as like a penny stock. But over the years, I think management has done really well at being able to, maintain its debt and be able to get it to a point where, I mean, let's face it, right now it's doing way better than Intel is, right? You got a delay on the Intel side while advanced microchip devices is just channeling forward. So I know that sort of a disruption with Apple wanting to move into doing their own chip devices, but I think that moving forward, the gaming industry, they're making moves into education as well. So I got a good forward vision for the management team. They're doing a really well job, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really impressed for several years now. It seems like she's been able to guide them towards a few sectors where they've been able to gain market shares. They're not as spread out as they used to be, and they're really focused on getting more profits. I mean, they lost money for years, but now she's actually guiding them to the sectors that are profitable and that they're actually succeeding in. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but Max, what about you? Like, do you have a kind of insight into their management compared to some of the other tech sector companies?
I mean, their management is basically performing what needs to be done, especially in the tech sector, and spending a lot of money if you're looking at the balance sheet and their cash flow into research and development. And so that's actually the weakness of Intel. Intel had a huge monopoly on the sector and was basically always declared the sector winner. But it's just like Madden, when you don't have competition, you get very complacent and you're not going to develop new technologies to push forward. And in fact, the reason why Intel's dropping is just because they announced that their next processor is going to take another 9 months to develop, which in 9 months in the tech world, that's obsolete. So their newest processor is going to be 9 months old. And so AMD is just going to get some more market share. And that's not because AMD's product is superior. It's because of the research and development that they've done in the past 7 years, which has finally brought them above the level of Intel.
Yeah, and also like they're at the 7 millimeters already. And one of the big thing that people, I'm not sure if everyone knows, is they actually moved from doing their own chips to actually outsourcing them to third-party companies, and that's helped them make it so that they don't have that problem that Intel has right now, where since their factories are stalled, like they can't deliver the product, as opposed to AMD has more options when it comes to their productivity. So Max, like you've been looking at the tech sector a lot lately. Where's AMD compared to their competitors? We talked a little bit about Intel, but what about NVIDIA, and how is it in the tech sector in general? Like, why are people looking into AMD versus these other companies?
Well, I mean, so Intel was basically the king of the sector, and it's lost basically that glow, and so it's going to give up a lot of market share, and AMD is poised to pick up a lot of that value. Now, its earnings per share are getting, the PE ratio for AMD is getting a little bit better, but it's still not quite where Intel is, because now you're talking about AMD P ratio, which is, I mean, it's actually pretty bad. It's 120 times, but with Intel, it's 9.29. So with the earnings per share, Intel still looks better because it's at $5.44, which matches Microsoft. So Intel still looks like the better company, but you have to dig into the numbers to see the trends. Intel is losing market share. AMD is gaining market share. The entire sector is growing. So AMD is well poised for that, because now we're getting more exposure to technology, especially because of the virus. So we're more dependent on technology now instead of transportation. So in terms of AMD versus NVIDIA, AMD is spending more than NVIDIA in research. They have the better technology. NVIDIA doesn't have the right financials to move forward. Although that's also a knockoff for AMD as well, because they're spending a lot of money just for interest. But that's sort of the management's trade-off. They're just going to replace good financials for research and development, not to win today, but to win for tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, I love that point that you make. You've made it a few times over the past few weeks. The fact that it's a growing sector, as opposed to some of the other sectors that are like not really future proof. Like, we know that tech is going to keep growing. Everything is going to be automated. There's more and more servers. Right now it's recession proof, basically, because companies need servers, right? What about you, Everson? Like, how do you see AMD in the tech sector, like compared to their competitors, but also just in general? Like, is it a good play? Like, are they in a good spot?
Well, I mean, I like to compare the history of AMD with what they did with between Intel. I think it was about a year ago. So you probably hate me for this, but I've been telling people this. I actually bought AMD when it was around $12 per share, and I had hundreds of shares of them, and I sold them out. I should have hung on to them, but I sold them out. But I also did own NVIDIA when it was back down at like $30 per share. You probably hate me for that too, because it's trading at a $407 per share now. But I mean, when we look at these, especially with AMD, I mean, position in the charts, we see a lot of overvaluation in them. And I think the whole sector was kind of overvalued. So which is why we sort of seen a pullback in the tech sector, right? And that's a healthy pullback. It was a necessary pullback for the tech sector, but I see, personally, I see a lot of overvaluation. So, I mean, headwinds could look a little bearish, but, your two stocks that I think will do well would probably be like NVIDIA. I think maybe NVIDIA at a little bit of a pullback would probably trend pretty nicely within its channels, but I don't see too much of a difference like we were talking about. Technology and these type of companies, NVIDIA, AMD, even Intel, as they correct themselves, have a lot more forward growth because shutdown economy has proved that we could do work at home. So a lot of people will be turning to home devices, your PCs and everything, and all of those PCs they need these operating chips in them. So in a long term, it would look like a pretty good position, but in the short term, we might see some volatility.
I mean, I agree with you. I've had a long history with AMD. I've been following them for many years, and it feels like over its lifetime, there's been many occasions where it just felt like it was so overvalued and they weren't doing anything.
Right.
So we sold it, right? I did the same thing. At some point, I had 5,000 shares and I sold them. And now, like 2 years later, it's at, you know what I mean? Like it doubled in price. So I feel a little bad about it, but it's such a complicated stock.
I'm punching myself in the face because of it.
I mean, it's a very complicated stock, which is why we're talking about it today, because a lot of people are wondering, well, what am I supposed to be doing with this stock, right? Like right now, we're going to go into like, is it overvalued at 69? there was a huge pop this week, and I think Everson, you actually had exposure to it, right?
Yeah, I I tried to bet on it going down. I wanted it to go down, but it's only necessary for it to have gone up, especially with the news of Intel. But what I found interesting was, you know, on the markets on Friday, we had Intel trading at a 16% negative. So it's not uncommon for me to see that, like Max says, you know, as we talked throughout the week, some of that shares or some of the investable money was going into Intel has traded hands and now is going into the AMD stock. So you can actually see that in the charts, right? By percentage, 16% down on Intel, 16% up on AMD. So they're just
Wow, that's pretty
money
cool.
switching hands.
Yeah.
Right? You seen that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so what about you, Max? Like, do you feel like it's overvalued as far as their financials and like their profits versus the price of the shares?
Well, I mean, you know me and AMD, you know, I would never touch it, but looking at how it's sort of taken over that specific market, it does look like it's poised to become the number one in processors with the technology and its exposure, you know, partnership with PlayStation and Xbox. So it does look like things are getting into its favor, but I still hate the PE ratio. And you know, if you're talking about earnings per share, you're talking about 43 cents for AMD compared to $4 and some change for Intel, even though Intel is sort of declining. So I'm not too excited about that, but that's what happens when you're spending a lot of money into the future instead of spending money for today. So I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up in the long-term future. Near term,
Yeah.
like Everson talked about, NVIDIA might be a little bit stronger. In terms of near term, I would take AMD over NVIDIA. I see a bigger pullback. There's a divergence there between AMD and NVIDIA in terms of strength. NVIDIA showed a lot of weakness last week with a bearish crossover. So if for some reason you have to pick a chip maker, I would go more with AMD. But I would actually reallocate my money somewhere else just because things are pretty hot right now. We're headed into August, which means that the tech sector is going to decline for a while just to reset for that tech boom that goes from August to December, January. So there should be a pullback somewhere there.
Yeah, I mean, I have.
Can I add some?
Of course, go ahead.
Sorry, Patrick. I just wanted to mention. I know Max is our chart guy, but I've been getting into charts a little bit myself. I couldn't help but notice the wick. I think this is on a month-to-month basis, but I'm seeing a wick that's going down a lot from where it's at. So, and it's going on the downside. So, I wanted to ask you, Max, is that a bearish pattern when you have a buy
Well, what's the
a very
time
small buy
frame for
signal?
what's the time frame?
I'm
Like how
looking at.
long are the bars?
I'm looking at. I think this is a year chart that I'm looking at, but it's showing the wick going all the way down from its last position. Right. Obviously, it's a big pop of 16.5%, but you have the buy signal at the top, but it almost looks like a hammer, and it's got a little wick at the top, but it's a long wick at the bottom.
Oh, so upside down hammer, which would be a shooting star. I mean, that's very bearish. And so even though I did say that this looks a little bit stronger than NVIDIA in the near term, there should still be a healthy pullback there because, I mean, you can put any indicator on it, Bollinger Bands, RSI, the MACD, right, and you're going to see that it's pushed up a little too high. Heck, you could even put a diagonal trend line up, and you're going to see that you're way above that trend line. So it needs to come back down to sort of a mean. So yeah, that shooting star would show that, hey, it's not time to buy. Just wait for that pullback. Wait for it to start rounding up, and then would be a good time to get in.
And that's what I kind of see with it. It's kind of the market is got this let me say this, like a rubber band, right? Elasticity, is that the word? I can't even speak right.
But so it's basically like if you're go ahead.
it's bound for a pullback, like you said. I think it's bound for a pullback too, because we can't create such momentum. I think so. I mean, maybe it moved to about, we had some of the analysts at some of the institutions that gave them a price point buy signal to about $70 to $72 per share. Maybe it does go there, but you can only trend so high before it becomes just, I mean, PE ratio is off the charts, like we mentioned. I can't see anything just being.
Just for the benefit of the viewers, we have to remember that like there's long term and then there's short term. Short term, right. We all agree that the market isn't always like rational. I mean, I'm looking at the charts too. It's been, according to RSI, it's been overbought like 4 big chunks in the last couple of days. So in the short term, people can keep buying. It doesn't really matter if it's overbought. People can keep pushing it higher. Now, eventually, it's going to retrace, but when is that going to happen? I mean, in the past couple of months, how many stocks have we seen that have been parabolic growth? So in the short term, it's very hard to say to bet against it right now. I know that Everson, you have a theory about that. Like, how are you going to be playing the stock, or are you even touching it?
So, yeah, I am. I'm actually putting puts on it. I'm taking a risk. I think that it's.
I'm not even sowing a little bit of doubt in your mind.
Well, I mean, I've considered it, which is why I may just buy into the stock at open, just for safe measures, because I feel good about the long-term perspective of AMD. So I would hold position of the stock and maybe do a covered call position on it, if just to add insult to myself. But and because I joined the team, right? I mean, with regards to selling, so I may do that.
But now you're confusing. You're confusing me a little bit. Are you going with the puts, or are you doing buy and write?
Well, I'm a bear when it comes to this short-term market. I'm a bull when it comes to the long-term market, which is why I said that I would probably buy into the stock on Monday. If that's the case, if I see it treading higher, just maybe I see it treaded higher by 1% or 2%. If it starts to gap up huge, I'd be a little concerned as to if it's gapping up near $72 per share. I may not want to be a buyer, and it also depends on the sentiment of the market and what's going on in the news, obviously, and then also what's happening internationally. I mean, the worst that could happen is, things go wrong with relations with China and the United States. If that seems to get worse, I just don't see how stocks can just trend, have this momentum just channeling itself forward. I just don't see it. So, which is why so many things happening with the elections, with China, with the stimulus, that there's little positive news. There's more negative news than anything. Not that the market has really been following through with a lot of the negative news lately. It seems to just be pumping itself, but we don't have a sure thing for the stimulus right now. We don't have a sure thing with China right now. The sentiment is up in the air. We have overspending, and we have momentums like these, which is phenomenal. But let's get back to reality for a short term, and then maybe in the long term we'll talk business.
And just before I go to Max, just to remind everyone, when there were problems with the China and US relationships last year, AMD was affected pretty severely. So just keep that in mind. I mean, if the tension keeps building up, it can be a problem for AMD because it was last year.
Yep.
So what about you, Max? Like, how do you see this? Is it a play for you? Like, I know usually you don't want to get anywhere close to it. So how do you view this stock as to invest short term, long term?
Well, short term and long term, I would not buy into the position. First off, hi, my name is Max, and I hate AMD, so I'm not going to get into it. But if I was someone else that was more into that was more into the stock, then what I would look at is the tech sector is very close to a really nice support region. So I just wait for a little bit of that pullback. That way the whole sector has got my back if I get into AMD. And I would also wait to see some some bullish activity on AMD, meaning, you know, a nice round bottom for it to start coming back up. So as of right now, I would be on the sidelines until, you know, the tech sector finds that bottom. That way, you know, rising tides is going to help AMD. But in terms of long term, there's plenty of market space for them to gain. Intel is not going to get their stuff together. And what's interesting is as months go by, as we recover from this virus, you're going to see AMD's balance sheet look a lot more favorable and starting to look more like a blue chip stock instead of a penny stock.
Can I add something, Patrick?
Of course.
I just noticed this on the research section for TD Ameritrade. You know, it's important for us to be able to understand that 74.62% is held by the institution. And the buy-sell ratings ratio is 3-0. So kind of looks like a pullback.
Yeah. As for myself, I mean, I'm not going to play it just because I've had a complex history with it. And I feel like it's kind of in the middle. I actually agree with Max on this one. Everson, I'm sorry, you're alone on your camp on this one. But it's kind of in the middle. It's still going up, but it might stop going up. We really don't know how much, you know, we've...
I'm with Everson. Like it's going to come back down. It's not getting higher than where it is at right now. It's not going
Everson
over 70.
Everson's a buyer of this stock, so he's bullish on it.
Well, I would buy the stock. I would buy the stock for long term, but I don't want to. On a short term, I don't want to buy the stock. I have puts on it. So my expectation that it comes down a bit, I'll sell my puts, and I'll buy in if it gets to the numbers that I want it to.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, so I'm not going to be touching this one for now, because even if I project myself 5 years into the future and see, well, at this price, is it a good deal? Or if it keeps going up, if it goes down a little bit, is it a good deal for me? And it might keep going up. I mean, it bit me in the butt a few times already, but I just feel like there's better plays long term. As for short term, personally, I'm not sure if it's going to keep going up because we've seen so many tech plays that just keep shooting up. People latch onto it and like a rocket to the moon. So I'm not confident that's going to happen. I think I agree with you guys. I think that it might actually pull back because right now it's so overbought. So to me, the risk versus reward on this one isn't very good, but you know, that's what we have to do. We have to decide if it's good for us or not. Some people are going to love it long term. Some people are going to hate it. So guys, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you learned a little bit more about this company. Just before we wrap up, Everson, you want to tell us a little bit about your coaching program?
Sure. So I'm kind of maxing out on my client list, but the name of my company is called No Labor in Vain, LLC. We're located here in Hawaii. So feel free to go ahead and you can give me a call. My business contact number would be 808-465-6004. And the best plan in place, I'm an investment advisor. So the best plan in place, not to get that confused with like a sales advisor or anything. There's no certification. So this is a coaching program. So it's sort of different, but we can go over the details if and when we meet in person. But I help you to be able to first, if you're in debt, get out of debt, and then also I'll teach you about the stock market. So feel free to go ahead and contact.
Everson's clients have had tremendous success. What about you, Max? Quick word on your coaching program.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're here to help you level up. And, you know, I can look at a stock and within 8 seconds tell you if I'm going to buy, hold, sell. And so, you know, the first course that we're talking about is how to read a chart and get you the skills, the tools to be able to identify in 8 seconds or less if a stock is a good position and what to do with it. And then we get into the positions, different strategies to take advantage of what the chart is telling you, because the chart's going to tell you everything you need to know. You just need to be able to identify it. So if you're interested in that, you know, there's a 30-minute meeting with me where we sort of go over your strengths and weaknesses, and then we can help you level up. So that's at calendly.com/Max Hadwin. And so the link's going to be below the video. So get you to read a chart in less than 8 seconds. And so you can go through a lot of charts in less than 60 minutes.
Perfect. And as for myself, my YouTube channel is going to be in the description. I talk about all of my favorite companies, what I've been investing in, some concepts that people are struggling with. Give a lot of value in there. So guys, please like and subscribe. Tell us if you enjoy AMD, if you're going to be buying it long term, or if you agree with us that it's probably going to pull back since it's so overbought right now. Leave us a comment below. We enjoy your questions, your comments, your feedback, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.